I'd simply wish for more respect. Respect for
When news breaks, we are already there. Welcome to Ptv2 Zambia, the channel that never sleeps. From community stories in your backyard to national headlines shaping the country and sports and international updates that keep you ahead, we bring it all to your screen. 24/7 news, fast, reliable, unmatched. Catch us on Topstar, channel 110. Watch live on Facebook, Ptv2 Zambia. Prime TV2 Zambia, your window to the nation, your gateway to the world.
Good morning, Zambia. As the sun rises our nation this morning, so do the questions shaping our democracy, our economy, and our shared future. This is the Sunrise Breakfast Show right here on Prime TV2, where the day begins with truth, perspective, and purpose, the home of breaking news. Thank you for choosing Prime Television Zambia 2 and to start the morning with us as we unpack the issues defining our politics, culture, economy, and sports, conversations that matter not just today, but long after the cameras actually goes off. I'm your host, Michael Himusa Jr., and later I'm going to be joined by my colleagues, Samuel Tembo, as well as Dominic Kapili, who are going to just help us unpack what the day has for us. Together we'll inform, interrogate, and engage you over the next 1 hour, just like that. We are live on Topstar channel 110, and we are also streaming live on our Facebook page. That's Ptv2 Zambia. This morning, the program is very interesting as we have a jam-packed show, ladies and gentlemen. Some hard national issues and realities. Now, as Zambia inches closer to the August 2026 general elections, we speak to geopolitical analyst Aaron Ngoma, who will critically examine the state of the opposition political parties. Is there a credible alternative, or are voters steering at one-sided race? During election campaigns, our towns and cities are often covered in political posters, but what happens after the elections? Right about now, there are elections going on in Lusaka's Chawama constituency. And we have seen different political parties, putting up posters almost everywhere. And the question that, remains is, after the elections, who cleans them up? Who pays the price? So we're going to be talking to Clean Cities Initiative Chief Executive Officer Watts Mwila, who will address accountability, environmental responsibility, and future of urban cleanliness during elections. And to wrap it up, JC, the sportsman, is going to come through just to unpack what is happening in the world of sports, just like that. But this is your show. Join the conversation, ladies and gentlemen, on 0972-036-306. 0972-036-306, or share your comments right there in the comments section. All right. Now, at this particular time, we are joined by Mr. Aaron Ngambi, who is a geopolitical analyst. But now, Mr. Ngambi, good morning and welcome to the Sunrise Breakfast Show.
Thank you for having me, and good morning to you, and good morning to the viewers and listeners.
Thank you so much. Now, in just 7 months, Zambia will head to the polls to hire or fire their civic leaders. Yet the opposition landscape remains riddled with infighting, fragmentation, and uncertainty. So the question is unavoidable. Do citizens have a credible alternative? Let's start the conversation, Mr. Ngambi. As we approach the August 2026, does Zambia truly have a viable opposition capable of challenging the ruling party or the voters facing a one-sided contest?
Yes. I think that is the question on the minds of many people, and I think it's a fair question to ask. As you mentioned, we just have a few months before we go into the general elections. Therefore, the people are wondering, is the ruling party the only option they have, or do they have an opposition political party that they can entrust their confidence in? The truth is that we have seen a lot of problems with the opposition front. It's no doubt that the opposition seems to be still fragmented, and some political parties in the opposition are still trying to find their feet in terms of the political space. Therefore, I think that we're yet to see. Now, 6-7 months going to an election is still a long time. I think something can happen in between.
But what do you think is the main among the opposition political parties, these confusions ahead of the August 2026 general elections?
For some of the opposition infights and stories that I have tracked and followed, I can honestly say that it is just a case of selfishness and pettiness and insincerity. I know that if the opposition really meant well, and that if we had leaders in the opposition who really believed in the country and they're willing to put the needs and the problems of the country before their own self, we'll not be having this conversation today. But clearly, we have seen that there are too many people that want to lead this one, and this one wants to lead. And even when you ask them what their agenda is, even when you ask them what is it that they can do for the country, or they would do for the country, the answers that they give you are not very convincing. It's just a matter of attaining a status in life, or probably becoming president. That's what they're about. But I think that if you go into politics and you want to lead people, it is more than just a position. You have to look at the bigger picture.
Talked about the conversation among the opposition. If you ask them what they have to offer now, are opposition leaders offering fresh ideas and leadership, or recycling political narratives that no longer resonate with the electorate?
Well, there are a few that speak to certain issues that are relevant, but it also depends on what the topics are. I don't think that I can find any opposition today that speaks coherently of the economic issues of our time. I mean, some of these opposition leaders are so disappointing that they can't even articulate what is the obvious. They can't go to the people and talk to the people about basic economics, about bread and butter issues. And so they're not inspiring. There are some that speaks to certain topics, perhaps the expertise in those topics, and that seems to be a little bit convincing. But by and large, it is a big concern that we usually have opposition leaders that only want to critique or point out and show the flaws that are in government, but yet not articulating the real issues. I'll give you a practical example just away from Zambia. Just tomorrow, on Thursday, Uganda goes to the elections again. And I was just listening to some analysis on what is happening in the country, because as you may be aware, actually the internet has been shut down. So it's hard to get first-hand information on what's going on. But the analysis I listened to Al Jazeera was spot on. Even though people are tired of Yoweri Museveni's rule for 40 years and people want to change, what Bobi Wine is offering is not substantive. He just basically shows that he's courageous and that he wants to be president. But if you ask him about the real deep issues that the country faces and how you solve them, it almost becomes like, a circus. But this is, to some extent, some of the opposition, so-called opposition leaders I've seen in Zambia. Some of them cannot even articulate the bare minimum of what is wrong with the country and what message do they have and how they can construct that message and deliver that message to the people.
What then should the opposition carry to the electorate?
Message should they convey for them to be believed and for electorates to actually be convinced that they can be voted into power come August 2026?
First of all, they just have to be real with the people. They don't have to be fake. They don't have to make up anything. If they're confronted or asked about something they don't know, they just have to say, I don't know. I can find out, I can research, I'll get back to you. But too many times we are tempted, people that we've seen in the opposition are tempted to simplify and over-explain and pitch in and say things that do not even make sense. So in terms of the message that I think the opposition should carry going into the elections is, first of all, they should just remind the people what it is that the UPND government said will do and they have not done. And there are quite a number of things I can point to. There were promises that the regime, the current president and the current regime, the current administration promised that they'll fulfill to the Zambian people. They're falling short of that. But that is not only the message. It doesn't start and end there. What you do is that if some things have not been done, which should have been done, then you offer the alternative. Then you tell the people, this is what we will do and this is how we'll go about it. In other words, the opposition needs to have also policies that they can articulate. Policies on mining, on agriculture. They need to have policies on education, and then counter what their policies are with what the administration of President Hakainde Hichilema is doing. We don't see much of that, and that is where the problem is.
Well, thank you
but
so
now,
much.
a few days ago, we saw how the Tonse Alliance is cracking down, where the Patriots for Economic Progress leader Sean Tembo pulled out of the alliance, as well as we saw how the Patriotic Front was actually kicked out from the same alliance. But now some questions actually remains or linger in the minds of citizens. Now, has the public trust in the opposition eroded due to internal conflicts and inconsistency?
I wouldn't blame the public if their trust has been eroded from these so-called opposition leaders and the alliances that they have made over time. We have so many alliances that it's even hard to keep track of. So I would not blame the public. I think we have the politicians to blame. Now, it's not only Sean Tembo of PEP that has left the Tonse Alliance. I think if you recall, earlier we had Peter Chanda and his party, the New Congress Party, leave the Tonse Alliance. And in that regard, it was regrettable because Peter Chanda's party was even positioned within Tonse as a special purpose vehicle that would be used by the remnants of the PF and those who came together under Tonse. So the leaving of Sean and Peter Chanda and even many others, I think will come through. And also the kicking out of the PF is not from without. I think for me, when you think of Tonse, there are a few names that come to mind. You're thinking of probably people like Nakachinda, who is in prison right now. I think Nakachinda tries to hold some of those elements together, but still there was confusion. The problem I have with Tonse is that Tonse is not even registered as an alliance. It's not registered as a political party. It's not registered for anything. Therefore, you go beating about the drums and telling people you're Tonse, and the elections come around in August, and people go to the polls thinking they're going to vote for Tonse, but there's no Tonse on the ballot. So this whole thing has been confusing for the electorate, for the people. This whole thing has been somewhat disappointing. And I think it's about time, if the opposition are serious, they should abandon such kind of arrangements or so-called alliances.
So much.
Well, thank you so much.
You talked about democracy, and are opposition alliances actually strengthening democracy in Zambia, or are they merely marriages of convenience? Because we see someone can come in and can walk out at any time. So, where do we put democracy when we talk about the opposition in Zambia?
Well, I mean, it doesn't matter what they do. I think whether the opposition are in confused state or whether there's not much to be talked about in terms of the opposition, the fact that they exist and trying to do something in itself, it should be encouraged. So I'm not here to discard alliances. I'm not here to discard opposition political parties. All I'm saying here is that for the opposition to be taken serious by the people, they really need to have a strategy, a tactic, or employ tactics that actually enhance their cause, but also have a message that resonates with the people. Now, I'll give you one practical example again. If I was an opposition political leader today, one thing I would articulate to is the issue of the economy. Now, you will agree with me that the United Party for National Development and President Hakainde Hichilema, they've scored very well on paper when it comes to economic performance. They talk about restructuring the debt. They talk about things like where the exchange rate is now. They talk about many things. So they talk about the GDP growth that was projected to be 6%. True that the people are feeling the improvement in the economy because we're looking at these indicators. And if there's a gap between the two, then you explain to people what's the cause of that gap and why the regime is failing to have these trickle-down effects of the economy. But nobody is doing that.
Well, from the explanation,
I can see that the opposition has got a lot of work to do in terms of offering checks and balances to the ruling party. But now, if the opposition remains weak, what does this mean for accountability and democratic checks after 2026?
I worry about that. I worry about that because we need a strong opposition to be able to counter everything that the government is doing, to be able to put the government in check. Just like, for example, with the recent Bill 7, which was heavily debated and some of us opposed a few clauses in the bill, and how that became law. It's Act 13 of 2025. You look at how the whole process went about. You look about the going back and forth between the government and the opposition, and then you look at the outcome of the bill itself. So if you don't have a strong opposition, if you don't have a reasonable opposition, if you don't have an opposition that is dedicated to bring about issues that are affecting people and see what the regime is doing about that, then you risk a situation where the UPND government will come in after August 2026 with 2/3 majority in parliament, and they can just walk in and change any law and any laws that they want to change. That is the worry I have. We need to be able to have an opposition that still have good numbers in parliament, that is solid, that is disciplined. Unfortunately, we saw that even during Bill 7, there were some members of parliament who have endorsed another member of parliament, and that member of parliament told all of them not to vote for Bill 7. And he, in fact, himself even stayed away, abstained from the voting, but yet more than half of those MPs that endorsed him went ahead and voted for Bill 7. So that tells you about the level of confidence that these so-called politicians and leaders have among each other. It tells you a lot about even just when it comes to what kind of tactics the opposition have been using to try to counter the government or to offer checks and balances. So it concerns me. It worries me that if we go into the elections and then come out of that with the ruling party having more than 2/3 majority in parliament and having a very weak opposition, then we're in trouble.
Profound, Mr. Ngambi. But finally, what are the long-term implications for Zambia's multi-party democracy if the opposition fails to recognize or organize themselves and rebrand, if they continue on the same trajectory? What does it tell, or what are some of the long-term implications for the country?
Well, I think to be a little bit optimistic, I want to say that I see a situation where some opposition leaders will emerge. I see a situation where maybe in the next few months, like I said, 6-7 months before the elections is quite some time. So probably something will happen between now and then, and perhaps 2 or 3 opposition leaders will emerge, and those will be voices that the people will be looking to. I'll give you an example again. In 2008 elections, presidential by-elections, if you recall, in fact, even 2011, we had almost 3 strong candidates contending for the presidency. You had Rupianda, who was president, you had Michael Sata in the opposition, and Hakainde was a distant but strong candidate as well for the presidency. So we need a situation where hopefully we can have about 3, 4, even 2, 3 strong candidates who have a strong base as an opposition political party, and going into the elections be able to give a good run to the UPND. I'm hopeful that that may happen in the next few months, but if it doesn't, I hope that maybe the opposition will be able to pick their pieces up after the elections. But the implications, like I said, are very concerning. The implications of going into an election with a weak opposition, going into an election with a fragmented opposition, going to an election with people that Zambians are not taking serious in terms of what could be the alternatives. And then coming out of that election with almost, because this is what will happen if any of these opposition leaders are not strong candidates going to the elections and are not being taken serious by the Zambian people, after the elections they'll even be more irrelevant. They cannot be more relevant after elections when they haven't performed well. So this is a really wake-up call for all the opposition political parties to re-examine themselves, to deploy tactics and strategies that will improve their image before the Zambian people and actually will deliver results in August.
Well, Mr. Ngambi would like to...
Thank you so much for giving us time to talk to you. We know where you are. It's midnight, and you just had to wake up and ensure that you inform the nation in such conversations. We really appreciate.
Thank you for having me. It's good to be on Prime TV. This is my first time. I look forward to be back again.
So much. We'll definitely invite you on more platforms.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, dear viewers, we've been talking to a geopolitical analyst, Mr. Ngambi, who is based in the US, but he's Zambian. And he talks about issues surrounding politics, not only in Zambia, but the globe at large. You are watching the Sunrise Breakfast on Prime TV2, and we are coming to you live on Top Station 110, and also streaming live on our Facebook page. That's Ptv2 Zambia. And also we are on YouTube. You can search for Ptv2 Zambia. We now take a break, but still to come, we are going to unpack a lot of issues when we talk about what's trending in different tabloids with my colleague, Mr. Tommy Tembo. Don't move an inch.
Early in the morning, fire on the stove, love in a pie, that's the life we know. From the fields to the table, every bite it shows. Primarily me, the taste of home. Primarily me, the taste of home. Primarily me, the taste of home. Mama in the kitchen, we never eat alone. Primarily meal, the taste of home.
Prime meal, pure, proudly Zambian, the taste of home.
Early in the morning, fire on the stove, love in a pie, that's the life we know. From the fields to the table, every bite it shows. Prime Millie Meal, the taste of home. Prime Millie Meal, the taste of home. Prime Millie Meal, the taste of home. Mama in the kitchen, we never eat alone. Prime Millie Meal, the taste of home.
Prime Millie Meal, pure, proudly Zambian, the taste of home.
Early in the morning, fire on the stove. Love in a pie, that's the life we know. From the fields to the table, every bite it shows. Prime Millie Meal, the taste of home. Prime Millie Meal, the taste of home. Prime Millie Meal, the taste of home. Mama in the kitchen, we never eat alone. Prime Millie Meal, the taste of home.
Prime Millie Meal, pure, proudly Zambian.
Thank you so much for choosing Prime TV2, and we are coming to you live on Top Station 110 and also streaming live on our Facebook page. That's Ptv2 Zambia, and we are on YouTube. That's Ptv2 Zambia in capital letters. Well, dear viewers, I'm now joined in the studios by the man himself, who is ever smart, and he always wears a smile. I don't know the reason why, but I'm going to find out why he does so, because he doesn't look sad at all most of the time. His name is Tommy Tembo. There's a middle name, which is Samuel as well. Good morning.
Good morning, Mike, and good morning, our viewers. And the description, or is it the introduction, is something that I'm trying to find a better word to use, but anyways, thank you. I'm humbled.
But why do you always smile? What's the secret behind that?
The fact of the matter is that in this world, there are so many problems, and if you're going to frown at each and every single problem, before you realize it, you'll be gone. So the best you can do is smile at every situation, even something that's supposed to make you sad. Just smile. At some point, when your enemies are looking for your sadness, the moment they see that you're just smiling, then they'll go back to their drawing table and start asking themselves, why did we miss it? This guy is smiling. We thought we've punched him hard enough. I mean, that's the way it is. So sometimes, just to defy the enemy's attempts to attack you, keep on smiling.
Wonderful. I respect you. For one simple reason. Don't feel nice. Don't feel nice yet.
Okay, I heard it.
Yes. I respect you, like big time, because you wear lenses, and for you to see me, you have to pay.
Exactly. I pay to see people.
Exactly.
And maybe, I've been wearing lenses from the time that I was 13. I was supposed to start at 7, but I had to delay a bit and I had to start at 13. So for quite some time, I've been wearing lenses.
Growing up, we used to be scared of our colleagues who used to wear lenses in school. Yes, at and everything like that. So I also tried to do that, but anyway, I just couldn't.
No, actually, to some people it looks like it's fashion or it's something that ought to be, highly respected. But it's a condition, it's something that you wouldn't do away with. And when you sit back alone, you wish that you never had lenses, because the moment I take off these lenses, then it will be hard for me to see things. And it's if I was like any other one. I used to play football. And of course, I would play and I could see the ball, but off the pitch, to see those smaller things became a little bit difficult each and every single moment when I didn't have the lenses on. So there are many times that you wish you never had lenses.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, that was on a lighter moment.
Exactly.
Well, let's now delve into what is trending or what is happening in terms of headlines in different tabloids in the country. We now start with the News Diggers, which has got a screaming headline which says, "Reduce prices, Kwacha has gained. Government tells businesses." For the past few days, the kwacha has been gaining muscles against other major currencies, but we have seen the price of commodities in supermarkets remain the same. What's your reaction on that?
I'm going to speak not as an economist, but just a layman who tries so much to understand what is happening on our, to our economy as well as on the market. So to start with, I'm going to say that at the moment, it is imperative that people start seeing, reduce prices of commodities, but it's not something that can happen now. Why am I saying so? Most of these products that we have, for instance, the groceries that we find in shops, in supermarkets and everywhere, these were bought when the kwacha was still trading at maybe 22 kwacha against $1. And now that it's at maybe 19 kwacha, 14 ngwe buying and selling at 19 kwacha, 16 ngwe, I think somebody might want to see an immediate change, which cannot take place now, because those, this strength that we are talking about of the kwacha has come in the last maybe 7 days or so. And if the companies, the shops and the supermarkets still have the old stock, then definitely they would want to clear that one out and make profit, because they are looking at how much they purchase those items. But whatever it is that they've been purchasing, let's say for instance from Monday to today, then the moment you walk into a shop, it's supposed to be sold at a reduced price. That should be non-negotiable. But unfortunately, we see many businessmen and, trying to capitalize on whatever it is that they have. Even if they bought something at a lower price, then they still want to sell it. And I'm pretty sure that it is timely that the government has voiced out against that. Yesterday we saw, Chipoka Mulenga coming on board talking about the same. People need to start feeling this. The officials, the government officials, the president has always been talking about this. No, these are the gains that we are making as an economy. These are all those things. For as long as somebody on the ground does not feel that impact, then it remains on paper.
Well, let's move on. The other headline in the News Diggers actually says, rules must be followed. PF tells Mundubile. There's been a lot that has been happening in the Patriotic Front and the opposition at large. We're just from talking to Mr. Ngambi, Aaron Ngambi, a geopolitical analyst who has actually unpacked a lot when it comes to the opposition. But there has been a lot when it comes to the PF. Mundubile was kicked out by one given Lubinda, who is the now president of the a faction of the Patriotic Front. And now he's being told that rules must be followed.
Quite interesting, you know, if you look at the way the opposition has been operating, and by the way, I should as well state this, that in Zambia today, when you talk about the opposition, it feels like you're talking about, PF. But we've got other political parties,
a lot of opposition political parties
that make up the opposition in the country. But of course, the ones that have been so much in the limelight are the PF. And I would say that from 2022 down to today, they've been in the limelight for all the wrong reasons. I know somebody's going to ask me, why do you say that?
Oh, yes.
But I mean, that's just the truth. From the time that the PF came into the limelight, after the 2021, election defeat, they've been coming in the limelight for all the wrong reasons. We come, then we see, Mao Sampa has taken over the PF shortly before we could, just swallow that one. Chavinga has taken over the PF and Ngona. Then, there's this, there's the court. 9 MPs have been, fired from the PF, and it's all such things.
There's just a lot happening.
Just a lot that has been happening. But one thing that I'm going to tell Mike and our viewers out there is that the opposition, the PF inclusive, have missed a chance for them to build a message to the Zambian people. I always say this whenever I get a chance, that Mike, if you are crying over something, then you come to me expecting help, then I start crying with you. Are you sure you are going to expect that I'm going to help you at the end of the day?
No.
The answer is definitely no.
Sure.
Because I'm also crying. But if you're going to come, maybe let me give an example. When there's a funeral somewhere, then we go to that funeral house. We don't go there to mourn with those people, but we go there to comfort them. Because if we are going to go there and mourn with them, through. So what I'm trying to say is the PF and the opposition in general missed a chance the moment that we had, the issue of the drought, the time that we had the issue of power, where we would go for only 3 hours in some areas, where they would only receive power supply for 3 hours. That was the best moment for the opposition to formulate a message that is going to give hope to the Zambian people. But what have we been seeing in the opposition? The exact contrary thing has been happening. They are just fighting amongst themselves. When they fight and they get tired of fighting, they want to rest, they start accusing the UPND. No, the UPND has got a hand, the UPND has done what? Okay, the UPND has got a hand. Are you sure? The UPND was in opposition, if I can take people back, in 2015. The UPND was in opposition. When we saw the Edgar Lungu faction convened somewhere, with just the raise of pangas, what the common raise, they just raised the pangas, and then they chose Edgar Lungu as their leader. Was the other faction chose Mao Samba? We're coming from that era. Was it the UPND which was again causing those divisions there? So whatever it is that we've been seeing, especially in the opposition Patriotic Front, is something that is synonymous to their very being. I think it's something that is very much embedded in their DNA. That's the reason why, down to this day, there's this confusion. Now, you see, I heard, Ngambi was talking about the opposition Tonse Alliance. He asked me a number of questions about the Tonse Alliance. Sure. This is very true. When you look at the confusion, of course, the Tonse Alliance could not exist outside the PF. But again, when you look at the confusion that rocked the Tonse Alliance, it was synonymous of the Patriotic Front. It was not different from what was happening in the Patriotic Front. And today we are talking about the Given Luinda faction. Then we are talking about now, I think I'm going to call it a faction that is following Brian Mundubile. Then we also have the faction that, as we speak, according to the documentation on the table, is the legal PF, which is under Robert Chavinga. All these are factions. And Robert Chaving, I think, has been quiet for some time. There's confusion that has been rocking the other part. He's been quiet. And
we're waiting for him to speak.
We are waiting for him to speak.
And I hope it will be something that will be positive anyway.
Exactly. I will hope so, yeah. So talking about Brian Munduvire and Given Luinda, the problem that is there, I think it's nothing to do with these two individuals, but it's everything to do with the members of the Patriotic Front, especially the members of the Central Committee, because everyone amongst them feels that they can be president. That's where the problem starts from. Everyone amongst them feels that they can be president. Remember, we had the Bowman Lusambo, who is in prison now.
Prison, yes.
He wanted to be president. We've got Emmanuel Mwamba, who is in exile. He wanted to be president. We've got a Given Luinda. We've got Brian Munduvire, Mutotwe Kafwaya. You can name them a lot, all of them together.
There's no one who wants to be led.
No. Nobody wants to be led. And when you look at them again, you discover that even those that have somehow indirectly or directly supported these in the Patriotic Front also want to be presidents. That is something that caused the fall apart of the Tonse Alliance, because Fred Membe can never accept to be led. KBF can never accept to be led.
Oh, yes.
Chishimba Kamburi can never accept to be led. You can bring in even Harry Kalaba. He's going to tell you, if I'm going to come, I have to be president, and you're going to be my running mate. At the end of the day, we are looking at a fragmented opposition that does not have anything tangible to offer. I tend to argue with people when they tell me, no, Fred Membe is coming up so well, Harry Kalaba is coming up so well, so they're going to provide a very strong opposition for the UPND. I tell them one thing, going by the numbers and going by the way, it's been happening in the past, you understand that it's very difficult for a party that in maybe 2 elections has not garnered more than 500,000 votes to come and win an election. Why am I saying so? Let's talk about HK and, Membe, Dr. Fred Membe. HK got 25,000 votes, slightly above 25,000 votes in the 2021 elections. Dr. Fred Membe got about 16,000 votes in the 2021 elections. Put them together, they are still less than 50,000 votes. What makes you think that these are going to garner up the numbers, the necessary numbers, to win the 2026 general elections on August 13th by a 50+1 margin? I don't think that can happen. The only people that would have provided a very strong opposition for the UPND is the PF, if they were organized.
Awesome. Well, let's move on. We are still in the News Diggers newspaper, and let's just read the last headline and we move on to another tabloid.
Yeah.
This one says, FRA completes transfer of funds for Muchinga farmers. It has been a song, FRA on the lips of farmers.
Mike, I'm going to be honest with you and with everybody that is, has got the privilege to watch us at the moment. One thing or one weakness that the UPND government has is communication. On that one, they've just failed to impress me on the part of communication. Let's bring it to the FRA issue that, that headline that you've just read out. FRA, like you've mentioned, it's been a song that has been sung every now and then. And from October, we've been receiving reasons. I think even yesterday we had some reasons from the chief executive, not the chief executive officer, but the executive director, Mr. Juncker. He said that the maize that FRA bought was 3 times what was budgeted for.
Yes.
That's understandable. And it's commendable that you couldn't let the farmers maybe try to look for market elsewhere. But here's the thing. FRA, in April, they are the very ones who gave us a projection of the harvest. They said the country is going to harvest about 4.5 million metric tons of maize. You see it that way? That was their projection. Does it mean they didn't know that they would be required to purchase more than they had budgeted for? Simple question. Have they given an answer? No.
Not yet.
From October, that's when they've started saying, no, we are purchasing more maize. That's the reason why we've delayed the payments. Oh, okay. But where were you all this time? When you're giving the projections, you knew quite right to say, this is what is on the ground and will be required to budget for more. But you don't do that. Then after you fail to pay, that's when you start bringing these stories. What I'm trying to say here is that that is a failure on the part of the FRA. It's a failure on the part of the UPND government. But the greatest failure in that area is failing to communicate effectively. Let me just give an example. Over last week, we're talking about FRA, the money that is supposed to be paid to the farmers. I think there was about 98-99% mobilization of the funds. And the farmers, the other week, Dr. Stumbe Komsokotwane said that all the farmers, all the payments will be made by the 10th of January.
Yes.
It wasn't anything to do with the mobilization will be done by the 10th. No, it was the payments will be made by the 10th, meaning every farmer would have been paid by that date. But what are we still talking about? 4 days after the deadline that was set, we still have farmers that are still collecting, and they're still complaining over, the slow pace at which they are being paid. So all those things, when you look into them, it's something that borders on communication. Why didn't, for instance, the Minister of Finance and National Planning come out and say, okay, we have set the 10th. Money will be deposited in their accounts in various banks for the farmers to be paid. Farmers wouldn't have, thought or raised their hope to say we'll be paid by the 10th, because something was communicated effectively.
Sure. And maybe the question that lingers in my mind right now is, farmers, as reportedly, were paid, let's say, on the 10th of January. And maybe let's just think outside the box.
Yeah.
Because they would have used the same money they're supposed to receive on 10th to buy farming inputs,
yeah.
to buy, chemicals and everything like that in November, December last year. So what did they use to buy inputs for us to have a good harvest this year?
That's a very good question, and it's a question that we've been asking for quite some time. We're talking of the president has been encouraging people to do farming. Even if you're a journalist, Michael, just have a few, acres or just a lima behind your house and do something, plant maize. This is in a quest for the country to be food secure, and it is a very, very wonderful call. And I'm happy that a lot of farmers, a lot of people, a lot of citizens actually adhered to that call and started growing maize. That's the reason why in the 2024-2025 marketing season, we saw that number or that amount of metric tons being sold to the FRA. And that should be the starting point. And we're supposed, like 2025-2026 farming season, we're supposed to be talking about maybe 6 million metric tons of maize that the farmers have produced. But alas, here we are. That means those farmers that contributed towards the 4.5 million metric tons are not going to do that, because this is, I'll give you, for instance, an example of Lusaka. Lusaka province, we receive rainfall up to somewhere around 800 millimeters. And our rains are between the 20th of November up to maybe mid-March. So if you're going to plant maize today, let's say a farmer gets their money today, tomorrow they have to go and buy agricultural imports and then start planting and the like. Are you sure the maize is going to be ready and fully, grown by the time that they're going to be harvesting? The answer is a definite no. So it means this farmer that is in Osaka is already disadvantaged. When you talk about farmers, maybe, for instance, that are in Pongwe area, somewhere there, because that side, I think the rainfall pattern is between 800 millimeters to 1,200 millimeters per year. And they can have rainfall up to April. So those can be still stand a better chance, but that is only if they go for early maturity. And here's the issue. Early maturity will give you between 8 and 10 metric tons per hectare. Late maturity, which is, and medium maturity, is going to give you between 14 and 16 tons per hectare. So if you've reduced farmers from growing maize that we're going to give them, between 14 and 16 tons per hectare to 8 tons with proper management. But without proper management, you still come down to maybe 3 metric tons, 3 or 4, just like that. So 3 tons. I think that's where the problem is. So if only the government going forward can look at into this issue, prepare in advance, and pay farmers on time, is something that is going to help. Because come this marketing season, trust me, we're not going to have the same numbers that we saw last year. Why? Because most farmers were not paid on time. Hence, they did not participate in farming. Somebody is going to argue, say there are those that are on FACEP. Yes, they are there, they're in numbers, but that is not enough. Many of them that were producing were not depending on FACEP. Some of them to be more specific, were under the Sustainable Agriculture Financing Facility. Yes. Which they haven't paid. So when they get this money, they have to pay, and they have to look at how they're going to grow what they have remained with. Mm-hmm. So they are actually sustaining themselves, buying the agricultural inputs themselves, and it is already late.
Well, thank you so much, dear viewers. If you want to get in touch with us, you can, send a text or call us on 0972-036-306, 0972-036-306, and we'll be glad to read out your message, or rather you can just drop a comment on the comment section on our Facebook page. That's Ptv2 Zambia. And also just a reminder, we're coming to you live on Top Station 110, and we are on YouTube as well. You can search for Ptv2 Zambia. Then we'll be able to have a conversation just like that. Let's now move on to the Daily Nation newspaper with a headline. The PF is almost in all the tabloids. Mm-hmm. All right, so the Daily Nation, the headline says, PF wrangles causing anxieties. That's Grayford Monde. However, says the former ruling party is nearing resolving all its differences with the hope of coming up with one leader who shall be a flag bearer of the 2026 general elections.
I find it very interesting.
Mr. Graymonde is shaming us. After talking about the confusions in the patriotic front, he's now coming to, calm the storm and says, however, the former ruling party is nearing resolving all its differences with the hope of coming up with one leader who shall be a flag bearer for the 2026 general elections.
Yeah, he can say that, and it's something that usually puts a smile on my face, somehow scornful. Grayford Monde is one of those people that have been eyeing the PF presidency, and I think it's something that is not hidden, and he has paid the monies maybe twice.
Sure, the 200,000 kwacha.
People have money, huh? Yeah, so what I'm trying to say is that Grayford Monde can say that, can come in the open and say that, but that is just a way of comforting himself and the other, PF members. Why am I saying so? Grayford Monde belongs to this same Given Lubinda faction, or whether he's followed Brian Munduvire is something that we're yet to know. But what I'm trying to say is Grayford Monde and his Given Lubinda or Brian Munduvire are away from the Robert Chavinga and Morgan Ngona, faction.
Faction, yes.
That means whatever Grayford Monde is talking about is in relation to this other faction where there's Given Lubinda, there's Brian Munduvire and the others. He is not talking in relation to Robert Chavinga. So whatever reconciliation, whatever remedies they are going to bring on board here is something to do with them. But do they have the documents? Their cases, as we still speak, is something that is before the courts of law. And I don't think that Robert Chavinga is going to easily let go.
And Robert Chavinga actually boasts to say he's the one with the Lugwalo.
He has the Lugwalo, Yeah, so Grayford Monde can talk whatever he wants to, but unfortunately, for as long as he does not, sit down with Chavinga and resolve the issues that are there with the Chavinga faction, it becomes very difficult for the PF. No matter how many conventions they can go to elect a flag bearer and whatever, is something that is going to amount to zero at the end of the day. Until Robert Chavinga and these other factions come together, that's the only time that the PF can be a force to reckon with.
Well, thank you so much. We now move on to another headline in the Daily Nation newspaper. This one says, use Chawama as a protest. That's Kopulande. Urges the people of Chawama constituency to protest against the UPND politics of urgency, division, and the decision to unjustly nullify parliamentary seat for Tasila Lungu calls on Zambians to reject the manufactured crisis at the ballot.
Copeland is somebody that maybe should be the last person to talk about politics of division. Mm-hmm. He was in a regime that clearly, openly saw the seeds of division in the country, and he never said anything. Then today, when the country is actually, there's just so much effort to unite the country, then he's coming up to talk about, division. I don't think he's saying something that is right. Talking about Chawama election, Copeland knows better. I think if I'm not mistaken, he's got a legal, background, and he understands the issues of the Constitution. The Constitution is very clear. By the way, Michael, if you're a member of Parliament, the Constitution does not say, because Michael is a journalist, even if he stays for 6 months out of Parliament, then it is fine. But if for Tommy, it's going to, no, it does not say that.
It's not selective.
It's not selective. It's just straightforward. Whether you are mourning, whether you are whatsoever it is that you could be going through, even if you're in hospital, for as long as your absence in the Parliament goes beyond a certain period, your seat has to be nullified. It's as simple as that. And Copeland understands this very well. So I think for me, for somebody to come and try to campaign and gain mileage on that one, that is a straightforward, a constitutional matter that is straightforward, doesn't need any kind of interpretation. I don't see it as just a way of doing politics, because we saw Tasila Lungu before the death of the father. Tasila Lungu was already out. She went on with the so-called maternity leave to the US. Yes. How long was she there? How were the people of Chawama represented? Those are some of the questions that Copeland and his colleagues should be asking themselves. Are we telling the people the truth? Imagine if Copeland himself was actually going to contest in such an election. Then he hears somebody talking about this, saying the same things that he's saying. How was he going to feel? I think we just need to be truthful. The people of Chawama need representation. That is a fact. They need representation, and if there's nobody to represent them, the Constitution has to be employed. Then somebody has to come on board and represent those people. And that's exactly what has been done in Chawama. There's nothing, there's no malice here, there's no politics of division, there's nothing. It's just a straightforward constitutional provision.
In short, his call for the people of Chawama to protest against the UPND is misplaced.
Very much misplaced. And instead, I'm not trying to say that the UPND is going to win, but instead, Copeland, whoever it is that he is supporting, is the one that the people of Chawama are going to protest against, because they haven't been truthful. When they realize to say, okay, this is what is happening, they should have just gone back to the people. Yes, this is the situation. The law says this, and we messed up here and there. But what we want to do now is to correct what we made wrong. I think it's as simple as that. But the problem with politicians is that they do not want to come out straight. Why? Because they're not leaders. Most of them are politicians, not leaders.
Well, thank you so much. You are watching the Sunrise Breakfast Show right here on Prime Television Zambia 2. And we're coming to you live on Top Search channel 110 and also streaming live on our Facebook page. That's Ptv2 Zambia. And we're also on YouTube. That's Ptv2 Zambia. If you want to get in touch with us, you can always text or call us on 0972 036 306, 0972 036 306, and we'll be glad to hear from you your thoughts on what's trending in terms of the headlines in different tabloids or newspapers, if you like it that way. Let's move on now to the Daily Revelation newspaper, which has got a screaming headline as well, which says, Tonse, a circus of small parties, Chishimba Kambwiri.
Yeah, Chishimba Kambwiri is somebody that can speak anything at any time. Some of the things he says are true. Some of the things he says are not true. But when you look at Tonse, he may call it a circus of small parties. I think, yeah, to some extent, he may be correct. But when you look at the way Zambian politics is, when somebody has got a very good agenda for the people of Zambia, there's no such a thing as a small, political party. That's what I believe in. So maybe he's talking from the point of view that, the PF, because he considers the PF to be the biggest, which arguably it is, or should I say it was. Yeah, but the truth of the matter is that any alliance would never survive